Well, welcome everybody. Um, I'm going to start us off with a piece that I learned from an artist on Windham Hill years ago that I remember playing at a family reunion, and Sam loved this song, so I'm going to play it for you, Sam.
Yes, so there's at least 4 chairs here, 5 actually, and there's still a couple chairs up over here. So anybody who would like a seat, feel free to move around. If you, for any reason, would like to stand, that's fine as well. We welcome you, you're being here. Thank you, great idea. That's why it's here. Okay, well, on behalf of Irma and the family, I'd like to welcome all of you to the memorial for Sam Windsor. Maybe just a word up front. We were anticipating that his dear sister, little sister, Arlene Wright, would be attending this virtually. However, in the last day and a half, she actually passed away. She had a heart attack, a stroke, and went very quickly. She really looked up to Sam. Sam was her hero. And it's almost like her heart was broken and decided to go be with him. So anyway, our thoughts and prayers are also with the family of Arlene Wright. I was privileged and blessed to get to know Sam over the years as his son-in-law. For those here and online, thank you for joining us in remembering Sam this afternoon. As we begin this memorial, please join me in this celebration of Sam's life with a prayer. O God of grace and glory, we remember before you today your servant Sam. We thank you for giving him to us to know and to love as the companion in our pilgrimage here. And we thank you for working through him to touch so many lives in a positive way. In your boundless compassion, console us who mourn. Give us faith to see that death has been swallowed up in the victory of our Lord Jesus Christ, so that we may live in confidence and hope until by your call we are gathered to our heavenly home in the company of all your saints. Through Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen. Next will be Jennifer Stone.
Irma asked me to read the 23rd Psalm, and I feel very honored and privileged to do that. I just wanted to share first that this last summer, Irma and Sam came to the Tri-Cities where we live, and we had a wonderful time. My brother Rod and I went to her class reunion and sat there the entire afternoon and listened to Sam's stories, and they were amazing. Hair curling, some of them. And that was the last time that we saw Sam. And but we did talk to him maybe a couple months ago, and he was very weak and not always conscious. But I asked him if we could recite the Lord's Prayer, and we did that over the phone. And Irma said that he was trying to mouth the words of it as well. And so we had a really special connection with Uncle Sam. Love him and miss him a lot. The 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters, and he restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Okay. Michael Harlow. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Harlow, and I'll be singing for you today a song that I know Sam loved very, very much, and I saw him weeping listening to the song many times, and so it's called The Holy City. Last night I lay a-sleeping, there came a dream so fair. I stood in old Jerusalem beside the temple there. I heard the children singing, and ever as they sang, methought the voice of angels from heaven in answer rang. Methought the voice of angels from heaven unto rain. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, lift up your gates and sing, Hosanna in the highest, Hosanna to your King. And then methought my dream was changed, the streets no longer rang. Hushed were the glad hosannas, the little children sang. The sun grew dark with mystery, the morn was cold and chill, as a shadow of a cross arose upon a lonely hill, as a shadow of a cross arose upon a lonely hill. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, hark how the angels sing, Hosanna in the highest, Hosanna to your King. And once again the scene was changed, new earth there seemed to be. I saw the holy city beside the tideless sea. The light of God was on its streets, the gates were open wide, and all who would might enter, and no one was denied. No need of moon or stars by night, or sun to shine by day. It was the new Jerusalem that would not pass away. It was the new Jerusalem that would not pass away. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, sing, for the night is on. Hosanna in the highest, Hosanna forevermore. Hosanna in the highest, Hosanna forevermore.
Beautiful, Michael. We who knew Sam were well aware he was a man with immense intellect, an urge to help others, a passion for learning, and a curiosity to understand our world, the universe, and the unknown. Sam Windsor led a full and fascinating life. It would be impossible to discuss all that Sam was: curious, kind, intellectual, determined, deliberate. However, in the next few minutes, I would like to provide you with my thoughts on the impacts of his life and relate those to themes found in the Bible, which he himself revered. But first, let's take a look at his name, Samuel Ronald Windsor, and what it means. Samuel is a Hebrew name, the original being a prominent prophet, priest, and judge in the Bible, whose name often is interpreted as heard of the Lord. His mother Hannah, who had been barren, who prayed long and earnestly, was certainly heard by the Lord when she learned that she was with child. The Hebrew letters Shin, Mem, Vav, Aleph, Lamed relate very closely to our S-M-U-A-E-L. Some scholars tell us that although these words can be interpreted as God heard, if you take those same Hebrew letters, and Hebrew doesn't have vowels, it has little diacritical marks, it can also mean set or placed by the Lord. Or even a further contraction would be borrowed of the Lord, which would also fit the context of the story of Hannah, who entrusted Samuel as a boy, a small boy, to the priest Eli to live in the ways of the Lord from a very young age. Samuel was also the last judge when the age turned from the age of the judges to the age of the kings. So Samuel, his first name means he was placed by the Lord or even borrowed for his 90 years with us. The name Ronald is an Old Norse name, Rogvalder. It means ruler's counselor. Surely this epitomizes Sam's penchant for giving sound advice. Sam was never short on words and always had insight and knowledge that would help counsel us. As the patriarch of an ever-growing family clan, and as a friend to so many he knew, and as an influencer to countless others, we can all treasure the impact he made, and much of that as a counselor with his wisdom in helping others properly rule over their own lives. The name Windsor is an Old English word and can mean winding river. Now, a river can symbolize the human life. It's constantly flowing. It has twists and turns and can be calm or turbulent. It has a beginning, and it always has an end where it meets the sea. When you put it all together, Sam's name can mean he was placed here by the Lord as a counselor to help us rule and navigate down our own river, our life journey. His name is both indicative of how he lived and his legacy. I would like in the next few minutes just to outline 3 points that to me epitomize who Sam was to us. He was a mentor, a pioneer, and a navigator. He was an influential mentor. Though intellectual, Sam was action-oriented in applying wisdom and guidance to others. Having worked directly for him in my first job out of college, he believed in my ability and helped train me in drafting drawings of his ocean vessels for his consulting firm, North Pacific Maritime. He had the patience and passion to spend time to make me and many others succeed. Other examples of his care and mentorship for others, including being an anchor for wandering youth by taking in foster children. There were the wayward teenagers. There was an entire destitute family of 4 he allowed to move in and cared for them for months. And then there was dear Russ Pachtinger, who entered the home as a troubled youth at 13. His life turned around through a solid family structure and love, and with a Bible camp he went to. Russ became a genuine member of the family for decades, and later became himself a social worker, helping others with with their challenging past and turning them into productive members of society. So this was actually the multiplying effect of Sam having on others, instilling them with what he was. On Orcas Island, he taught science and math to young people through the Fun House, a club where he could have guidance and training to others. There are other stories of him mentoring a man from a prison work release, helping him make major life changes. And there were students with learning difficulties that he helped succeed in their outstanding college entrance examination and later pursuing college degrees and careers in engineering. Sam mentored the disadvantaged, the underprivileged, and he detested racism, always working to make the world a better place. This is not even mentioning his 5 own well-adjusted daughters, all of whom have a deep appreciation through the love and caring so that was instilled into them. His life embodied the new commandment Jesus spoke of, found in John 13, 34 and 35. A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this, all men shall know that you are my disciples, if you have love to one another. Sam was also a pioneer, and in this sense, he was a barrier breaker, and he was true to his beliefs. And this quality starts with him having such a strong intellect. It gave him insights others could not see. Combined with his will and courage and boldness, he stood for what he believed in, to be a real pioneer, which I'll get into a few areas here. He was gifted, and his intellect caused him to have a piqued interest in fields of science. He authored, as you can see afterwards here, if you haven't already, and you may be familiar with books co-authored with his friend Don Patton, such as The Mars-Earth Wars and the recent reorganization of the solar system, all from his knowledge of astronomy and physics. He performed fascinating experiments with the preserving power of pyramids, which gave insight into those ancient structures that exist all around the world. As a forensic investigator, he especially was an expert in anything related to marine accidents, and he had a perfect record in the courtroom as an expert witness. Sam was always a student, even after becoming a master at mechanical and structural engineering. In recent years, he was taking courses in ancient history, quantum physics, and even learning the Latin language. With the insight obtained through a diligent study, Sam had the confidence to stand strong for what he believed in. His inquiry, research, logic, and knowledge led him to conclude that much of what we have been told is not the whole truth. In challenging the established medical thinking, he told my wife, Jenny, who at 15 was paralyzed head to toe in the hospital, that she did not have to believe the doctor's negative prognosis when she was told that there was a great chance that she would never walk again. When the doctor left the room, Sam told Jenny, who said we have to believe him? After which he did research into another facility that was instrumental in Jenny having a record recovery and back attending high school 6 weeks later. And it was going to be months, if not years, if ever. He found the power of believing could influence our health and our living. He became an expert in challenging established ways of thinking. In science, that is, in archaeology and cosmology, he was highly skilled in established science, but would not hesitate to challenge mainstream science when he needed to, like the book he wrote called The Elastic Second. His work also challenged mainstream biblical archaeology when the team doing research in Turkey, that site visited a site there that the local people had considered for many generations the site of Noah's Ark. He did research on the vessel. He confirmed by visiting it that it was indeed the dimensions found in the book of Genesis. And he even wrote a paper that's up here on the table that explored the remarkable properties and dimensions of the ark found in the Bible. But he stood strong for what he believed in when ridiculed. To some, there couldn't really be a place where Noah's Ark is, that fable. Or he proved that whatever this was, it was an ocean-going vessel. Some would say that couldn't be Noah's Ark because it needed to be, like the cartoons I saw, on the top of a mountain called Ararat. Well, he knew that the Genesis text states that the ark rested on the mountains, plural, of Ararat. It was not a single peak. In fact, the word Ararat is a transformation of the ancient word Urartu, which referred to the region of Armenia, which was much larger centuries or millennia ago. We can all take away from this two important points. Don't limit your beliefs to what so-called experts tell you. Sometimes those professing to become wise are really fools. So investigate for yourself. But there's even a further point. Second point is there's an underlying message revealed in the very essence of the story of Noah's Ark, and we need to take that lesson. Man, in his waywardness, is in need of a rescue from ourselves, our failures, our sin, our rejection of God and ways. God is today, as in Noah's day, calling those who will stand against a deceitful heart and a decaying society and its inevitable consequences of destruction. You are being called, so choose to come aboard the ark, the assembly of God's people as a safe haven. Our decision will become a testimony for God's wisdom, grace, and truth, and the story is a fresh reminder of the blessing that awaits those who choose the path of righteousness and life. And then Sam was a marine navigator, as we know. He was in the marine field, but he started out actually joining the U.S. Navy and eventually made his profession what we know as the maritime industry as an engineer. So let's take a step back and reflect on the responsibility we have been given to chart our course as a navigation. It will determine where we end up. Therefore, let us choose our path wisely, find our North Star and compass. We can refer to the Lord and His Word as our guide. And let us be sure our rudder is aligned to direct us when the winds and waves of life surround and buffet us. The book of James 3:4 says, "Look at the ships also. They are so great and are driven by strong winds, but they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs." This imagery uses the imagery of a ship in order to steer such a large vessel. One small rudder does that, and that really can mean what is our faith and how we can direct our faith into what we speak, for good or for ill. If we have negative thoughts and speak negative things, the rudder is taking us in the wrong direction. But when we have the speaking of that which is positive and truth and building up, our rudder is on course, and Sam's rudder was on course. This is a sign for all of us if we can understand it. Sam's situation was telling us that our eyes need to be open and we need to see that the things that we are seeing are temporal, but the things that are unseen is eternal. About a year ago in a conversation, Sam told me this, and I quote, God is the author of non-physical reality, which is the greater part of reality by a bunch. Today, Sam is telling us through his life and in an unseen realm to seek a spiritual North Star and to open our eyes for our life journey. Every voyage has its end, and death eventually meets us all. But if our faith and hope is in the Lord, it is only an end of the voyage, and a new glorious destination awaits us. Sam was not religious, but he was spiritual. His mother told me many years ago that he was baptized at the age of 12, responding to a call. And I know Sam has sailed to a new and better land beyond our comprehension and is beckoning us to take the way of loving one another, being bold and courageous, to step outside of our comfort zone and take the truth of the Lord as our North Star and our compass for navigating life, so that we may one day join him when our own voyage is complete. I'll close with a verse from John 11. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Okay, so we will now have Sarah playing the Irish pipes. Okay, Bud Bronson. You probably all know that Sam worked for many years with Bud Bronson in consulting engineering. So thank you, Bud.
Sam and I were introduced to each other in either the late 70s or early 80s by Chuck Garman back here in the back. And we immediately were a little cautious about each other because both of us were very strong and very competent in our profession. By profession, I'm a naval architect. That means I do the outside of the ship. Sam was a marine engineer. He stuffs the middle. We worked together at that. But we had been working together many times, and finally one day Sam came to me and he said, "Bud, if we're going to continue this relationship, we got to get married. This living in sin is going to stop." So we formed Bronson and Windsor, and one of you just said something that would just. He and I were both maritime experts. We spent a lot of time in court, and one time he was in court, and this lawyer said, Mr. Windsor, it appears to me you've spent a lot of time in more time in court than a lot of lawyers. And he said, well, last time I looked at the yellow pages, there were about a half a page of us naval architects and marine engineers, and there were 7 or 8 pages of lawyers in there. And the judge says, Mr. Windsor, you go 1. He had a great sense of humor. He was a wonderful guy to work with. It was honored to be part of that group. We were in business together off and on for about 12 or 14 years. And finally he said, I'm going home to the island. You got to figure out what you do with yours. I'm going to the island. And at that point we resolved and shut down Bronson and Windsor and both went back to our individual things. While Bronson and Windsor was going on, there's a book over here by David Fasold, and you've already talked about her talking about the ark and all like that, and we did a lot of work with Fasold about laying out the dimensions of that vessel, whatever it was, and proving that it was not just a piece of scraps laying around on the ground, that it was something that formed and was a ship. It was my pleasure and my privilege to be in partnership with him for as long. He was just a great guy. I miss him, but I know he's in a good place. I don't know what else I can say other than I miss him tremendously, and he was a wonderful man. And as you people here, you're a side of his world that I never got to meet, except briefly. We lost our secretary, and we were searching for a secretary. Couldn't find one, and then one of these ladies here came in. His daughter said, "Somebody's got to take care of you two." And she came in.
It was a privilege.
We were very fortunate. Yes, we needed a guy. Anything else I can tell you other than he was just an incredibly wonderful man, and deeply religious in the nicest sense of all that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bud. Next is Carrie Stone.
We've had the honor
the last few years to have Aunt Irma and Uncle Sam to our house for several holidays. And it was just a real joy to have that time, getting to really get to know Uncle Sam in a deeper way beyond just family get-togethers and things. And I always appreciated just how incredibly gracious he was about how cold I keep my house. And all of my crazy habits. And he kept his crazy habits going too while at my house. And we just had a really good time together. And I know that our daughter truly appreciated his presence and your presence at her wedding in May. And she was shocked that he made that commitment to be there. She knew that was hard for him. And so he loved us well, and we appreciated him. In my dreams are places I'd call home, and faces I have known, far away and long ago. Time moved on, leaving memory behind. The heroes in my mind, far away and long ago. The ones who live for everybody else, and never thought of living for themselves. Fading smiles in pictures on my wall, and I can still recall the way they loved so long ago. Stories told of another age, and when life turned the page, they were gone so long ago. The ones who left this changing world to me are never really far away, it seems. They're living in my dreams.
Could you guys lower that?
I know. Can somebody,
We don't need it.
there we go. I think it's okay. Okay. Get it,
There are more
one, two.
chairs if some of you are standing, would like to find a seat.
There's seats.
Yeah, if you want to have a seat, anybody? Okay.
First, second, third, fourth, fifth.
Okay. We have to stay in order.
Well, the idea that Dad was a mentor was all through our childhood. And it was natural. It came natural. The boys that were at our house were not there for us. They were there to sit with Dad. And so many of them had troubled homes and didn't have fathers, or had fathers that were there but not. So it wasn't a decision he made. He just who he was. He did decide, though, to take each of us out at 12 years old to be our first date to a steak dinner and a movie, which was very special. I bet that's all. That's all. I'm not going to explain. I have a couple of other things to say, but that's what you're going to hear from some of the other 12-year-old girls. The story I have is Pam and I. Dad took us out at 9 and 11. She says she doesn't remember it. I'm going to remind you. So Dad decided he was going to take us on a survival trek. I thought it was just camping.
So he took us shopping at REI and he bought, I remember, big chunks of chocolate. I remember those dishes, the tin cup, tin bowl utensils that are all compact, clamped together. Maybe sleeping bags, we might have already had them, I don't know, but it was a fun shopping trip. And we took off early, probably Saturday, just for the one night. Took us into the North Cascades. It poured all day. All day. I remember visually, I looked at my feet the whole time so I wouldn't slip in the mud. So we finally get to this place Dad had chosen. He probably investigated, where was a good place and so on. But the rain was unforgiving. It didn't stop and we were drenched. But nothing deterred Dad. When he set out to do something, he did it, period. So it poured and poured. We cooked over, he had a covering over us. We cooked under that as the rain came down, tarp. And we didn't really see anything in that hike because of the downpour. But we woke up early the next morning, Pam and I. The rain had long stopped. It was crisp and clear and beautiful. And we left Dad behind asleep and we scrambled up this hill. Well, we looked out over the Methow Valley and we just stood and looked, taking in God's beautiful display of his creation. And then Dad came up behind us and he just stood there silently. He didn't say anything. And he finally broke this really kind of sacred moment. It was very quiet. And he said that this was the scene that he saw coming back with Uncle Leo to find a home to live here. And they had been through a rain and he just comes around he crests this hill and the Methow Valley is what he sees. And he knew that he was excited to move us here into the Northwest. It sparkled, what he told us is it sparkled like a fairy tale. So, and he says, just like this. So that is one, and I will quickly, because they have to share, is Dad had always told us lots and lots of stories. So about maybe 25 or 30 years ago, I decided I was going to start writing these down because I wasn't going to remember them and nobody else was. So when he was living in Ballard, maybe somewhere around 85, I decided to try and write down his stories by recording him talking. So every Wednesday I got my cassette tape recorder and I just let him talk for about an hour and a half. And then I'd go home and I'd transcribe it because all I had was the one cassette and I had to record. I could have bought, maybe I could have, we didn't have much money, but I used the one and I kept recording over it every week, every Wednesday. So then when I figured we were done,
Or he figured he didn't have any more memories, he said. So that turned out to be a lie later. So I clamped them together with those butterfly clamps and I put it up because I didn't feel like pushing anything further than that. And so about 4 years later, around 2008, was it 2008? We ended up, no, yeah. We moved in the meantime, downsizing from a house to a condo. And I discovered the book. It was just a bunch of pages clamped together. And as I was thumbing through it, I thought, it hit me that through a downsizing move and no recordings, this was it. And I thought, oh, I can't believe I didn't take it more seriously, that this is all I had of his stories, these transcripts. So then 2 years ago, Dad and I, we were visiting Dad, my daughter and I and the kids. And Dad starts telling me this story about when he was a paper boy, 11 years old. He tells a story I'd never heard. Dad, you never told me that. I would have put it in the book. He just shrugs. Okay. Someday.
Eileen, tell the story.
It's hard to remember it like he did, but he was throwing the paper, or no, collecting for the whatever he was delivering, Wichita Eagle or something. And he goes up to this woman's house and knocks on her door, gets ready to receive the money, and she flings the door open and she's naked. I don't think he said naked. I think he said something like she. Oh, I cannot remember it that clear. And she has this look and then slams the door shut. And at that same moment, her husband's pulling up. So apparently she was expecting it to be her husband because the two were happening at the same time. Except it was Dad standing there instead of. And Dad turned around and he sees her husband sitting on the bottom step laughing hysterically. Anyway, that's the story. Thank you for reminding me.
I wanted to also, sorry. I wanted to say also that Dad made a merry-go-round, like in 1964 or something, for Seafair. 66?
A float with a merry-go-round on it. So,
For Seafair.
Yeah.
These guys got to test it out, and I was jealous. Because I was too big and old. Anyway. Yes, he was very involved in the community, so that was nice. It's so loud. And I was thinking of where he did so many things to help us. But the one thing that I can think of is that he, two things. He helped me, I got a camera for Christmas when I was 11 or 12. And he helped me set up the whole dark room. I had the printer, from everything, the developer, 3 pans. So he helped me set all that up. So I did my own pictures and stuff. So, and then another thing was when I was about 8. I don't know. This is very goofy. When I was about 8 or 9. Does anybody remember Lost in Space? Yeah. Will Robinson, Danger Will Robinson. I had a huge crush on Will Robinson, and I just had sisters. So I came up with this song, and I went up to him. I was like 8. I went up to him and I said, I have a song, but I don't have any music to it. Can you help me play the piano to it? So he did. And it was, I wish Will was my brother. If Will was my brother, I'd love it. I love Will. He did. He wrote it. He played it on the piano while I sang it, and he sang it with me.
Nice job. This is true. Dad encouraged all of our creative activities, like whatever we were interested in, he took it seriously. He was very unusual and unique father, to say the least. But I'll just tell a couple of vignettes of just the kind of father he was. So when I was 3, 4, and 5, I had these invisible friends. Everyone else called them imaginary, but in my mind, they're as real as you sitting here. So he said they're invisible. So he totally validated me. Like they came everywhere we went. Like there was always Fether and Timothy. Like make room for Fether and Timothy. And he just, all right, he'd open the door and he just validated that. Well, one day when I was about 4, we were living in Federal Way before we moved to Capitol Hill. And I insisted I knew what their house looked like. It was blue. And this was a Sunday afternoon, and I wanted to go find that house. So he said, okay, troops, get in the car, everyone. We're gonna go find Fether and Timothy's house. So we drove all over Federal Way looking, and I ended up in tears. We didn't find it, but I was satisfied that he put forth the effort and did that for me. And eventually they went on their way when I started kindergarten. But he was just a perennial optimist and just always cheerful and encouraged whatever we were interested in. The 12th birthday. So our 12th birthday was a big deal. To him, this was a rite of passage. And he made sure that we understood this is the transition between childhood and adulthood. And so it got all dressed up for a fancy restaurant. We didn't go to those kind of restaurants, but it was a dress up event, and he would book a nice restaurant and we got to pick whatever we wanted to do. And for me, it was the movie that came out that year, which was Funny Girl with Barbara Streisand. And we all plays, musicals, whatever. And he continued that tradition with, I believe, all 60 of the grandchildren. I think he did that with all the kids. And he was so happy to have grandsons because he got to do different kind of things, like a Mariners game. So, and he was a lover of music. He was just so enthusiastic about everything. But I had the privilege of attending several operas with him. And he was always good about telling me the story. And he really put into me a real love of the opera. And he said the voice is the highest expression of the human soul. He very much loved the opera, and I do too now. So, children, child number 4.
I just wanted to give a little snapshot of what it was like to be his daughter, one of his daughters. Say there was I'm picturing myself around 9, 10, 11, so I was a kid. It's a rainy Saturday, hanging out with neighbor kids. There's a bunch of neighbor kids over, and we're just like, what now? One of them, some neighbor kid says, let's go ask your dad a question about space. Oh, okay. And I'm like looking at the clock, you sure? So we all file into the living room, and Dad's sitting there in his big chair reading the paper. And so everybody takes their places. In my memory, there must have been 8 or 9 kids. I don't know. So we're all on the couches and chairs, and Dad's got his paper, and Dad puts his paper down, looks around. How far away is Pluto? Just some space question. Well, okay. Pulls it here. pulls his computer out, calculator out of his shirt pocket, which was always there and which was always part of his conversation. Boop, 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 boop. And he explains, well, Pluto, blah, blah, blah. He explains why and where and how we know this, and the gravitational pull and the rotation of the Earth and around the sun, and we're okay. So we get, I don't know if it was 15 minutes or 3 hours, but time goes, and one of the kids just stands up and says, I got to go home now. And so everybody else is like, okay, this is my chance to go out. So everybody follows him out. And then Dad just picks up his paper again. He's okay. He did his, they asked him, he told what he could. So that was just one example of having Dad then his 80th birthday, we called Dad and said, Dad, we're taking you out to lunch, and we're gonna rent, not rent, but we reserved a room at the Orcas Inn, and Dad, you can talk about anything you want. And Dad was like, what? He just, okay. So he was all excited. So we all show up there. We had to take the ferry there. We met them there, and he comes with handouts. Stapled and collated, and one for each one of us, and passes them out, and we're just like, can we order lunch first? So okay, then he was able to talk the whole time until the ferry came again to take us back for like 3 hours and this was about his new discovery about the he called the elastic second. Marty mentioned it, but it was fascinating. The distance, the stretching of time from how far away. I mean, I really don't know, but but it was just going on until our eyes glazed over. But that's okay. His love language was to be able to talk, and people listen. And so we were there to listen because that was our gift to him that day. And that was the way to express that we loved him, just to let him talk to us about space. Anything, yeah. So, there.
So, being the youngest, someone asked me not long ago, weren't you ever jealous that your dad spent so much time with other, and I had never, that thought had never crossed my mind, because Dad was so generous. It was with his love. I mean, it was like, if I needed anything. So when I was very young, I'll start. When I was very young, I was very much into books, and he had this huge Random House dictionary that he got for us, and I would open it up and read through everything, and Dad would explain, the etymology of it, and then of the words, and then so there were 2 books that I just was fascinated with when I was about 5 years old, and he every time he saw something in a child, it was like, oh, that's impressive. Everything that you have, this gift that you have, that's impressive. And so that was the first word that came to me when I was thinking about what am I going to talk about, Dad. He was so impressed when you just talked to him about what you were interested in. He was impressed with it. So I was probably 7 years old or so. It was in 73 because the Elliott Bay bookstore had opened up, and Dad was very much involved in the community. He knew all, city council, and was involved somehow in the opening of that. We were at the grand opening of the Elliott Bay bookstore, and it was packed with people, and he said, you can buy 1 book. And I never got new books at that young age, just for me. So I sat down, I picked up the Flower Fairies of Autumn, and he said, okay, that's it. That's your 1 book. Are you sure that's the one you wanted? A book of poetry. And sure, so yes, this is the one I wanted because it had a dandelion poem in it I loved. So anyway, years later when I was in college, I had just started, and it was the day I was supposed to have my tuition in, and I went, oh shoot, I don't have enough money. And anyway, I called him out of desperation from a payphone, and he went, well, I called his work, and he goes, I'm heading out now. I'll be there in, in less than an hour. Wait for me at the front doors. So, and it was pouring. It was like October, pouring and gray and dark. And so I'm waiting by the door, and he comes racing up in his black overcoat, his fedora suit, comes racing up the stairs in his girth, because he was quite large, running up the stairs, handed me a roll of the exact cash that I needed. It was all rolled up. And he goes, "Here you go, Bink, love ya." And he gave me a big hug and then took off. And I went, "Okay, thanks." Paid my tuition, it was fine. Anyway, but that's the kind that he just encouraged us. He saw each person as having their own gifts. And I remember he told me once when I was really young, he said, when God creates everything with purpose. And he said, all the stars, the planets, everything is created with purpose. And in my young mind, he said, everybody has divinity. Everybody has this divine purpose in them. And in my mind as a youngster, that was so much more important than God loves you. It was, you have a purpose, and how special is that? And then he would just like foster that. What's your purpose? Let's feed that because that's your gift. Anyway, so I'm gonna miss him terribly. He gave me a nickname, so that's always with me. It's always Bink. So Binky. So anyway, yeah.
Thank you. We'll just open it up for anybody to share. And we do have a special microphone that could be used. So raise your hand, we'll get you a microphone, or if you want to come up. David.
I'm gonna take some messages right off the bat. I don't know if I'm gonna get through this. Okay, I was the first boy to walk in the door of 5 girls. So there was this cute little girl in high school. I first noticed her when I was 15 years old. They would call it stalking now. But I made sure that I knew where her classes were and what halls she walked and stuff like that. So lo and behold, our senior year in high school, there she is in my drama class, and that's Sam's oldest, Eileen. And one thing led to another, and she kind of had a boyfriend. And by the end of Drama Fest, she didn't have a boyfriend anymore. So I come walking in the door of the house on Capitol Hill, through the back door. Adrian was all of 9 years old at the time, probably younger. She's sitting on the dining room table, not on a chair, but she's sitting on a dining room table. She's snacking and stuff like that. Jenny and Karen are carrying on in the background, this, that, and the other thing, and so on and so forth. So we got, Eileen and I got married in 1977, and I hope there's a picture of Eileen throwing the bouquet, Jenny catching it, and in the background stands Martin. There's a certain destiny, a certain synchronicity to all of this. But I think what is most important is that there isn't a child of the, we had 2 kids. Karen has 2. Jenny kept having kids forever. Ended up being 6. Pam's got a couple. So we all had kids, and I don't think there is a grandchild that won't tell you that Sam did not treat each one of us like we were the most important person of that moment and that time. And I can safely say that if it wasn't for Sam and his girls, my life would not be what it is. Truly, they saved my life. And I was probably one of the most proudest moments that I've had is we took Sam and Irma back to the ferry. And I stood there in front of Sam and I said, Sam, I just want to tell you, I'm still in love with her. Every day is still exciting. It's still a great journey. You are part of it. And thank you so very much. And the man is he's omnipresent amongst all of us in his family. He's had a huge impact on all of us, and it has been an honor to be his son in all sense of that. And I'm exceptionally proud of the girls and all of us. When we get together, we have so much fun. And it's because of Sam and because of the legacy that he put in front of us. We literally, when we get together, we literally play with ourselves. There's the entertainment never stops. And anybody who comes with is just brought into the fold. And so his legacy lives on, and I'm very, very proud to call the man my father and my friend. Thank you.
My name is Don Schaefer. I'm sort of Sam's brother-in-law because I'm sort of the big brother to his wife, Irma. I want to call special attention to Sam's ability to tell stories. He was a storyteller supreme. And of course, we heard how the book Sammy came into existence. And if you haven't read it, I would certainly recommend that you do so. It's a fantastic little story. I spent literally hours of my life sitting, listening to Sam tell stories.
Hi, I'm Adrian's daughter, Leah. Wanted to kind of play off of the story that you shared where he would take, kids out on their 12th birthday, and it was this whole shindig, and he'd take you to a fancy restaurant. So for me, I was 12, but I very much lived in my own little creative world. And so my grandpa wants to take me out. My mom's like, yeah, you're going to go out. This is going to be great. He's taking you to a play. Well, for me, a play was a musical. And that was the only kind of play there was. There was no people just talk for hours. And I was like, oh, yo, good, a play. I love plays. So at first we went out to a French restaurant, and I couldn't read the menu because it was in French. And then so I asked, what's for, what do they have to for drinks? And there was a drink menu, and it was all alcohol. And he was like, no, for like children, you have anything for children? And they said water. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I had my water, and we ordered some food, and he had to order because I didn't know what anything said. So we get the food, and it was good. And then we went to a play. I don't know what the play was called at all. It took place in a courtroom the whole time. And at some point I started leaning forward, and to keep myself awake, I was bouncing my knee and shaking and like just trying to keep myself awake. And at this point it's quite late. It's getting later and later. It was probably like a 3-hour play. There was an intermission. We went back. I was like, maybe there'll be a song. Nope, it was more. So at the end, he was like, wow, I could tell that you really enjoyed it. And he even said to my mom later, I could tell she was leaning forward. She was so into it. Little did he know. Yeah. So at the end of that, I was like, wow, Grandpa, thanks for the day. But at the end of the day, I think what really showed me his personality was we were leaving the play, and there was a man. And to me, it was scary. Like, I didn't grow up in the city. I didn't spend a whole lot of time in Seattle unless it was, at my relative's house. and it's dark and it's kind of a shady-ish area. And this guy comes like wandering out of the darkness, and I was like, oh, okay. And so then he went up and Grandpa Sam was like, oh, hey, how's it going? Something wrong? What can I do for you? And I was like, don't talk to the stranger. and it turned out that the guy had a flat tire, and that his battery needed to be jumped too. And so Sam was like, let's go over and we'll fix this. All right, come on, 12-year-old kid, let's go over here to this stranger's car. And it turned out that, yeah, like he really needed some help. And the whole time, Sam was just talking to him, fixing his car, helping him out. We spent like 45 minutes with that guy, like helping him out. And then, his car was good on, off he went. And Sam was like, all right, let's get you home. And it was just such like there was no fear there. And all he wanted to do was help this total stranger in the middle of the night in a shady neighborhood. And I was like, wow, that is a unique individual. That's what ultimately had a profound impact on me. It wasn't the day, it wasn't the, foreverly long play and the, and the menu I couldn't read. It was that he went out of his way to help a stranger. And that to me, that's something that I feel like I can carry forward in my life. Anyway, that's what I want to share.
My name is Jamie. Sorry, that's loud. I am another granddaughter of Sam's, one of Jenny's forever and on kids. I'm the second of 6. And I'll just tell a few ways that he had an impact on me. There was one year in particular that was an interesting year of my life. I went to work on fishing boats in Alaska, and it really had no connection to him because it just was something I thought, well, I wanted to travel, and now I need some money. I better go do something quick to make that happen so I can go on a trip again. And I had also applied to grad school during that time. It turned out while up in Alaska, I had a medical problem. My eye had an issue, and I had to be sent back to Seattle because there wasn't really a suitable place in Alaska to get the evaluation I needed. So I had to get off the boat. Was in Dutch Harbor for days on end because you can't just fly out there. The wind has to be right. Their airstrip is tiny, so I went, going back to the airport every day. Any flights today? Not yet. Okay. Well, one of those evenings when there was nothing to do but watch eagles on dumpsters and trudge around in the snow, I called Sam and Irma, and we were just talking for a while about, all these things came up that I had no idea the connection. The company I worked for, Sam had designed the boat, the Arctic Storm, and he had adapted it from another kind of vessel into a fishing vessel. And I ended up seeing drawings of it later, and all this was, I had no idea there was any connection or correlation to what I was doing then. But obviously the, things come through the genes and the whatever happens in life. It's not an accident. And he was telling about fire investigations that he had done as well, and that proved to be really interesting the following winter when I worked in the shipyard for the same company as a fire watch. And it was probably the most boring job I could have ever imagined in my entire life, watching welders for 12 hours and setting up some things to, for fire suppression and whatnot. But because of the stories that he told me about these fires that happened on boats and fishing vessels specifically, it meant a lot more to me, and it actually it made me feel like it was actually an impact. Like this is actually important what I'm doing because these awful things happen and I know firsthand. So this is really valuable. And at that same time also, I got a call while I was on the fishing boat that I had been accepted to MIT for grad school. And of course they called on the satellite phone that was really, shaky and hard to hear and hard to talk. And so it was very awkward. I didn't want to tell that, that professor or that, commission that I was working on a fishing boat. So it was all kind of funny. But I would definitely say there was no small part that he had in giving me a love for education, for learning, for math specifically. I loved math as a child, but as I grew up, I wasn't so confident in it. But due to genetics or his encouragement, I passed the GRE with flying colors. So I guess I am okay at math. I guess I am. So, but a lot of that had to do with what he instilled in me as a child. He always made it fun. He gave me math presents, workbooks, really nice big algebra book, which I have with me today. For Christmas. And Irma was so horrified. How could you give that to a child for Christmas? But I liked it. So I'll miss him a lot.
Oh yeah. There's 1,000 stories I could tell about Grandpa Sam. I'm going to tell 2. He was one of my favorite people in the world, and one of my best friends, which is really weird when you're a grandson, because he never once talked to me like I was a child. He talked like you understood what he was saying, which as a child, half the time I didn't. When he got really excited about something, he'd go off on it, and I'd be sitting there mostly just completely mesmerized by his excitement for something. And he'd be talking about it and just be completely mesmerized by his enthusiasm. And he never talked to me like I was a little kid or like condescendingly. He gave me so much credit. And I have 2 major moments in my life that I associate with him. The first was that I traveled with him to Kansas, to Wichita, Kansas, to visit his father, my grandpa WINDSOR. And the plane ride there and the car ride to the house, the plane ride, there was a TV that played 2 movies, and I didn't glance at the TV once because we were talking the entire time. And he was like me. He loved to talk, and we talked and talked. And then we get about a block from his house, from my grandpa WINDSOR's house, from his father's house. We're about a block away, and he turns to me after pointing out a million things along the way, telling me about his childhood. He turns to me and goes, "Oh, by the way, your grandpa has a dog that's half wolf. And he's really protective of your grandpa, so just don't make any quick movements. Like, just don't do anything and make him nervous." I'm like, "Should I be worried?" And he's like, no, you'll be fine. Just no quick movements. Just don't like 10, 11, like that, 12. I was young enough to be like, that's a horrible thing to tell me a block away from his house. Me and the dog that was half wolf became fast friends, of course. But that was his sense of humor. I'm not even sure if he was joking. That was, it felt like a joke as an adult looking back. At the time, I was like, and the second one was when me and Joel helped Grandpa Sam and Irma move to Orcas Island. And it was just me and you and that big U-Haul. And we drove there, and he talked the entire time about like Nostradamus. Stuff that there's this guy, he went into all these stories, and all me and Joel did was sit there, yeah, wow. And he made it seem interesting. And we get there, we help him unpack, we move everything in, which was, for 2 like 11 and 12-year-old boys, it was a lot of moving. That was stressful. And at one point, I kind of complained. I was like, "Oh, why just the 2 of us?" He's like, "Because you're free child labor." Don't complain, get to work. And that was his sense of humor. Again, I'm not even sure if he was joking. And then just recently, a couple months ago, he was in rehab at the hospital. And I just went to go visit him a couple times. And the last time I was there, I had just gotten married. And I was sitting with him, and I had him close to me in his wheelchair. And we just talked for like 3 hours. And he wasn't very good at talking at the time. He was slower. He was speaking very, very quietly. But I asked if he had any advice for a new husband. And he said, I don't know really what I can tell you, except that you are the most important thing in the world. Family is the most important thing in the world. And he was thinking about that a lot toward the end. Because he said, when you get to this point, Michael, and you're my age and you're where I'm at, you start to think about what matters. What do you leave behind? What people will remember you by? And he goes, the only thing I can think of, the only thing that I'm thinking about right now is my family and how that's all that matters. That's all I can think about. So I am going to miss him so much. He was one of my best friends.
Good afternoon. Once again, my name is Michael, and I have something that I wrote here, which I'll read in a moment, but I did want to quickly comment as well on Sam's storytelling ability, as we've all heard and know quite intimately. He was quite the talker, and but he was a good storyteller as well. He had all kinds of details. He had sound effects, and which were often quite creative. You really got a sense for what he was describing there, whether you understood the depth of it or not. But so that was very special. And I first came to know Sam when I was about 8 years old. And I had, through a mentorship program that they put together on our island, on Orcas Island. And about once a week, I had the privilege of what seemed like having graduate level seminars once a week, many times. So beyond on many, many topics, as we've all heard from the rest of you as well. But we did so many more things than that. And I have to mention too, kind of towards the end, I was recalling some memories with Sam when on one of my last visits with him, and I just, how he used to tell stories, and I used to get in trouble because we would take so long, and I was supposed to be home hours ago from my parents, and we'd get me in the driveway in the vehicle, and I couldn't get out of the car yet because he was still telling the story or giving me some more detail, and my hand is on the door and opened it slightly, and it was a process, a process to get into the house. But I don't say that to mention that I didn't like that at all. I really did enjoy it, but I did get in trouble a few times for the time frame. But I was recalling one memory with Sam about a gentleman that we met on this place on the island who was also quite the talker. And he followed us back to our car, and it was like we were trying to get into the car. We were like half in the car, and this guy is still talking to us. And I was recalling that memory with Sam towards the end, and he was chuckling about it, and he said, "Yeah, that he wouldn't shut up." And as much as Sam could tell stories and talk, there were people that even Sam thought were going on a bit too much. But Sam was more than a mentor to me. He became like a father, a grandfather, and really a true friend to me. He invested so much time in me, not because he had to, but because he wanted to, and that's just how he was. He truly cared. And he taught me so many things, from different life lessons to long engineering mathematical talks that went far over my head most of the time. But I always paid close attention and was captivated, as others mentioned, by his excitement and his interest. He really put that through everything he was talking about. And yeah, he was really like a walking encyclopedia and a truly intelligent and wise man. But beyond his knowledge, what stood out to me about Sam was his heart. He saw the good and the potential in everyone around him. And he guided me and supported me and helped me to grow, not by forcing things on me, but truly encouraging me to become who I was meant to be. He was gentle and kind and always generous with his time. I will forever cherish all of our hikes and fishing trips and endless conversations filled with laughter, wisdom, and warmth. The impact Sam has had on my life cannot be overstated. I am reminded of a note that I wrote him when I was about 8 years old, trying to express my gratitude. I told him that without him, I would be roadkill. And at the time, that seemed like a great metaphor. But looking back, I still think it holds some truth, that because I wouldn't be the man I am today without the impact of Sam in my life. And I'd just like to share one more story here of some of you may have heard this and some not, but it reminds me of the laughter I've had with Sam, and it's sort of the funny things that have happened and how he could laugh at himself. But we used to put on these spaghetti dinners as fundraisers on the island, and I had got Sam to come to one of those, and they served them on paper plates, and there were these orange and red tablecloths, and we had, talked and eaten, and he had finally finished his plate and picked it up to hand it to the waiter, and there was a big hole in his plate. He had eaten through his plate, or eaten the plate rather, and we all kind of laughed there for a second. I was like, "Whoa!" And I said, "Sam, it looks like you ate your plate." And he just kind of paused, and without missing a beat, he just said, "Well, it tasted pretty good." So it was just very funny. It was a very Sam reply, and so that's how Sam was. He was very lighthearted and a good sense of humor. And like all of us, I have so many memories I could share, more than there's time for today. And but I was truly blessed to have him in my life, and I really do miss him dearly, and I love him very much. But I know I'll see him again someday. So thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stand back here. Yeah, it is loud, huh? Okay, Uncle Sam was my uncle. I'm his niece. And I wasn't going to say anything, but I've been sitting here listening to all these wonderful stories. And I'm going to tell you a story because he was my uncle. When I was about 28, I prayed for patience. God gave me 5 kids. I have earned patience. We're going to come back to that. So me thinking I'm skilled in patience after having 5 kids within 7 years. Fast forward to the wedding, and I was in a hurry. I was ready to go. I was tired. It was over. We were done. And we were just waiting on for everybody that was going to leave with us. And Sam started him with one of his stories. He's like, "Come sit with me." And he started talking about the engineer and the architect. And I didn't know who the engineer and the architect was, but he started going into this big old story about making things work. And sometimes there was like, meh, but then everything always worked out. But then mid-story, he stops, kind of pauses for a second and switches gears and starts talking about the girls and the dresses. And like all these little stories about these little girls. And so I kind of was taken back for a second. I'm like, does he realize that he just switched stories on me? So I was sitting there being patient. Is he aware? And he just, keeps going on about his stories, and he just stops for a second and he waits, and it's a long wait. And I'm like, are you going to finish your story? are you tired? I'm, just smiling and being with Uncle Sam. And then he starts talking about a pirate on a ship in Alaska with one eye and all these adventures and all this stuff. And he's going on and then again stops mid-story. And I'm like, okay, Uncle Sam, are you getting tired? Are you feeling okay? And I'm actually wondering, if he's like losing some of his keenness because he's old and he's tired. And I'm questioning in the back of my head if he's okay, do we really need to get you home? And then he switches into a story about the musicians. And he did this. There were 7 different stories and none of them fit. None of them melded together. And I just sat there patiently and talking to Uncle Sam. And then he trails back to each story, but not in the same order. And he expounds on each story again. And none of it fits. And till now we're half an hour into the stories. And he ties it all into one place. And I can't tell you where it was, how he brought the story together, because it cracked me up that he made everything fit together when it didn't. And so I was sitting there laughing and, Sam, he just looks at me and he's like, you thought I lost my mind, didn't you? And I'm like, yes, actually I did. And so we just sat there and laughed about that, went on my way. And as I'm sitting here listening to you guys' stories, I didn't realize that in that moment, he made up a story about you. And I'm sitting here listening to your stories and that was the story that he was telling me in the minute. But at the end, when we were done talking, he said that he was pointing out to me a new patience because I thought I was skilled in patience and he was teaching me something new, that it was going to be a new skill. So, and this story has been sitting on my heart for a couple months about that experience with Sam and the patience that it brought me to and the waiting in it, in the story that he was telling me was for today. And it was how long has it been since they got married? Has it been 2 years since your kids got married?
Oh, no, that was May.
May. Okay, so it's only been a year. Okay, so I had to wait all that time to find out the punchline to his story was today. So anyway, love you, Sam.
Thank you. So we do have some refreshments. Everyone is invited and encouraged to share more memories and enjoy the refreshments. There'll be some music as well. One last item is there is a David Russell who lives in Australia who couldn't be here. He's known the Irma's family for, I think he said 52 years. And in the last few years, he's gotten to know Sam more, although I think he's known him as well for years. So I just wanted to share an email that he sent. Although I first met Sam in 1978, I've known the Holmes family for 52 years and the Stone clan even longer. It was 2023 that Irma informed me about the couple's emerging difficulties, in particular Sam's health challenges. As discussions progressed, I discovered that Sam and I shared an interest in astronomy and many other subjects. I quickly came to appreciate his keen mind and clever sense of humor. Over the next 2 years, I tried to provide useful support and counsel to both Sam and Irma. During this process, I connected with Jenny Young, who quickly became a good friend and co-supporter in the push to improve her parents' situation. Many other friends and family members were also involved in this effort. I'm grateful for having known Sam, who is truly remarkable in many ways. A person's life can take many unexpected turns, and Sam was no exception. Towards the end, I believe he came to terms with the past and strove to make restitution where possible. Today, here on the far side of the world, I raise a toast to Sam and to the family and friends gathered to honor him. David Russell. So if you're at a table, you can line up, load up.
First we have
One more event. Sorry. Yes. Thank you. We have a solo.
Yes,
So
yes, and I want you to know that Sam always said at my memorial service or whatever, I want this song sung. On the front of the programs, and there are several places where if you don't have one, you can pick one up, is a picture of Sam with holding a little boat model. The picture was taken by a young friend named Eric Christopher is how I knew him. He was a friend of David Fassholt's and David's family. And the boat, this is a little model of a boat that that Eric's father brought to Eric, and Eric gave to Sam because it was made of reeds like the ark. I was very privileged to go with the 9 gentlemen and no other women to Turkey to see this site. And I had a lot of fun visiting people and buying carpets. And while the guys went around doing scholarly things, and I also had the great delight of while they were out watching the Hittite ruins and I was out buying carpets and had extra time, I was guided to guess what, a shopping area, which was a place where antiques were being sold. This was in Ankara, and I went into a little store, and the first thing I saw was a belt that was 500 years old. That's an antique in Turkey. So the gentleman was asking me why I was there, and I said, we're here to see Gemisi, which in Turkish means Noah, his boat. He said, well, my son should show you over to this carpet dealer over here who has studied with a Muhammad scholar and knows a lot about Noah's Ark. So I went over there, and this young man opened this big volume of all his notes in the old Turkish writing about his lessons from this Muhammad scholar. And he said that Noah lived on an island, and that his family helped build this boat of reeds. And they were the 80 people, not 8, but 80 people who ran the boat. And Sam says, no way could 8 people handle a boat that size, nor could it have been made of wood because it would have broken up in the seas. It was so large. So we did see an artifact that looked like a petrified stone with reeds and some kind of plaster in between them that we think broke off of the boat. There were other reasons why we were convinced this was the boat, and they did some more soundings of the site and found a grid work of metal in the ground where the boat is located. So that was a big thrill. And as we were leaving that site, and I had spent some time with Hassan was the owner of he was in charge of the whole thing. And his son and his granddaughter I spent time with, and he was pleased with that. And so he invited me to come and stay with him and his family the next time we were to visit. And I pointed to Sam and I said, can he come too? He gave Sam a very sour look and said, he can come too. And so it was a wonderful, very exciting experience, and one of a kind, of course. And so when Eric gave Sam this little boat, it was in to represent the reed boat that was Noah's Ark, and seemed appropriate to put on the front of our cover here because it was a very proud achievement of Sam and Fasold and all our party. I was very fortunate to be able to go and have that amazing experience because of his far-reaching and interesting interests. So I wanted to share that with you.
All right. Well, it's my pleasure to sing for you again and for Sam. This is a special song he wanted sung today. I'm sure many of you or all of you will be familiar with it. Hopefully it plays all the way through this time. Yeah. And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full, I've traveled each and every highway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do and saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when I was down, I ate it all and spit it out. I faced it all and I stood tall and did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried, I've had my fill, my share of losing, and now, as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way, oh no, not me, I did it my way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. Our record shows I took the blows and did it my way.
Well, is there any particular order of how we should do this? Those who are running the kitchen, just line up, go for it. Obviously, there's tables you can sit at. You might need to turn your chair around, but thank you all. Carry on with more stories and all of that. I'm sure we all have some more to say. Thank you.